Today, we're talking about something that's often on our minds when we're in the wilderness, and that is bears and wildlife. I wanted to cover this topic because I think it's something that can stop us from going exploring for very valid reasons. But I wanted to have a conversation to equip and empower you because I think the more we understand about wildlife, the more confident and calm we can feel. I had this awesome conversation with Stephanie. We chatted about the difference between black bears and grizzlies, the different kinds of responses you might encounter from the bear, like how they might act. And then we actually had a fake bear spray that if you are watching on YouTube, you will see how we remove the cap and how we hold it. And if you're listening, we did try and verbally explain it pretty well. But if you want to see that, jump on over to YouTube. We also walked through a few scenarios of encountering a bear and how we would each respond. I thought that part was really interesting. I hope that that will be helpful for you. And towards the end, we also do cover cougars, moose, rattlesnake, and ticks. Just briefly, but we thought those were the animals that the people that are listening to this podcast are mostly going to encounter, but let me know if we missed something, if we should chat about something else. So let me introduce you to Stephanie. So the outdoors has always been a part of her life, growing up in a farm on the prairies to now raising two daughters in the Canadian Rocky Mountains with her husband. Before becoming a mom, she spent nearly 10 years leading backpacking trips, and today their family is deeply rooted in the outdoors, hiking, canoeing, gardening in the summer, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, and traveling in the winter. Welcome to Let's Go Outside, a podcast bringing moms together to chat about the raw, unfiltered reality of doing the exploring we love after having kids. No matter your comfort level of adventuring with the little ones, this is a space to have honest conversations about the real struggles of getting out the door with the kiddos. I'm Danika, a mama living in a small mountain town who's totally obsessed with healthy food and taking my kids outside every single day. I professionally guided backpacking trips in the Canadian Rockies, and I'm certified as a Leave No Trace instructor. On the show, you'll hear real experiences from other moms, plus tips on gear, trail snacks, and the best practices in the wilderness. Whether it's hiking, camping, backpacking, skiing, or traveling the world you want to do more of, this is your place to learn, find encouragement, and strip away any comparison. Come embrace both motherhood and the outdoors. Stick around. This is your place. Welcome to the Outdoor Mom Club. Welcome to the Let's Go Outside podcast. I'm so excited to invite Stephanie Goodbrand to the podcast today. Her and I have known each other and been quite connected for the last 10 years. And we have done different things from 8-day trips together to caving together, different hiking, and in the last couple of years we have both become moms, and so it's super exciting to welcome her on. She has a lot of experience on the topic that we're talking about today, which is animal safety, running into different things. We're mostly going to cover bears, but we will talk about cougars, rattlesnakes, moose, and ticks. So if you're interested in that, keep listening. We really want to give a lot of insight, give practical examples, and I know there is many moms that feel nervous about going into the wilderness, and this is maybe stopping them from going, and that is so valid. Like, I think we have all experienced that at different times, and it increases and decreases through at different points in our life and our motherhood and our anxiety times of the month, different things like that. And so let's just chat about this and have a conversation, and hopefully this is informative and encouraging. Let's start. I want to ask Stephanie to share a little bit more about herself and her family.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Danika. Super excited. I live in the middle of the mountains, the Canadian Rockies, with my husband and two little girls. I have a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old. So yeah, lots going on. But yeah, no, I've had a lot of experience just outside guiding trips for about 10 years before becoming a mom. I've had many bear encounters, a couple encounters with moose and cougars as well as rattlesnakes and ticks. So kind of all of the things we're covering. I'm really excited to talk about it because I think it's so important to be aware and empowered to go outside, because I think unknowns can make things so much more intimidating, especially as a mom. You're responsible for these little people and you want to make sure that they're safe, but you also want them to just enjoy being outside as well, because we know that that's so important. I'm really excited to talk with you about empowering you to feel confident going outside.
Yes, so happy. Super fun to do motherhood alongside you, Stephanie. I did a bear safety course on the weekend. This is something that my husband was doing with his students, and I have done this program before, but then I wanted to jump on board just to like kind of refresh my brain. And so some of the things I wanted to pull out and chat about today. And so I thought we would just start with talking about the difference between black bears and grizzly bears. And black bears are mostly what people see. They chatted about how they can be anything from a white bear to a black, cinnamon colored, or a blonde bear. Anything. They have a pointy face, oval face. They are lighter colored noses often. Their coloring often changes throughout the whole bear. And then the other difference with them is that they have big leg muscles. They have small claws. And this is a big difference between grizzly bears. Because of the small claws, black bears climb trees. They're really good at climbing. And if you ever run into black bear prints, you will see that the black bear does have a lower toe on the outside, and that's how you can kind of tell. And you'll still see the claws in both of them, so it won't be a huge difference. But the toe, you can kind of line a pencil up or a ruler or something and kind of see that the toes are not fully all in a line.
Grizzly bears, they're typically like further back in the backcountry, sometimes even in the prairies too, compared to black bears. They're kind of more, those are more common in town. Grizzly bears they like being out in the wild. And yeah, their fur is typically a sandy color, but it can also be black. So yeah, the names are not super confirming what it is. It's not necessarily just one color. They have like a really round face compared to a black bear, like a teddy bear. They're honestly so cute, and they have big fluffy round ears, and their face is kind of like a satellite dish a little bit. They typically, the older ones especially, have a really big hump on their back. That's their big muscles for digging. So they really like digging, flipping over rocks, finding stuff underneath to eat. Their nails are really long compared to black bears, so they can't really climb trees. If you do see their prints, their claws are definitely way further out. Typically, you don't see paw prints from both right next to each other. The grizzly bears also have, like, their toes are more in a straight line, whereas the black bears have the one dropped one. That's kind of like just a brief difference between the two.
And they were saying in the course that the grizzly bears are a more consistent color, where a black bear will kind of be like different colors, or you might see like a lighter face and a darker body, whereas the grizzlies are pretty consistent. The only thing is like they might have darker legs, but yeah, that's kind of the difference.
Yeah.
Some things that they chatted about that I thought was really interesting is you want to pay attention to your surroundings. Are the birds singing? Is your dog unsettled? Are the deer running away? Often you'll notice that the animals or the surroundings are responding before you. And I often find that when I'm going down to the lake with my boys, and if I see like the beavers swimming and there's deer down there, then I don't think there's any big predators around. I don't think that there's any bears, and it makes me more at peace, more calm in that situation. And then, so when we're going into bear country, we're jumping right into how to respond, or just how to be proactive in bear country, is to make loud noises. Often when I enter the bush, especially when it's a place that's not very populated, when there's not a huge hiking trail with a ton of people, I am talking super loudly to my kids. I'm even yelling before I enter the forest. The bear bells, people often talk about that. They are not that helpful. The guy that did our course, he talked about how in some places the bears are just so used to the bear bells that they actually are like interested, and they'll come check them out. And so it really just depends on like what area you live in and what your bears are used to, which is so interesting to think about. I know people like to put them on their dogs just to know where their dogs are. And he was like, yep, that's totally fine. You can still do that. That's it. Something that I like to do is make a lot of noise with my kids when I'm going out there. We'll sing a song, and usually I sing a song, not to freak them out, but just for my sanity and to stay calm and stuff. I'll be like, follow the leader, away we go. And we just sing that again and again pretty loudly, and they love it, and they just like copy it also. And so that's something that I often do with my kids when we enter bear country. Stephanie, would you like to chat about what happens if you see a bear in the backcountry?
Yeah, so there's three kind of different things that can happen when you see a bear. And I'd say like the most common for sure is you see a bear, you make noise, you make sure it's aware of where you are, and it runs away. That's the most common thing, and that is great. Like you want them to not be comfortable around you. You want them to just be like, oh yeah, I don't really want to be around these people. I'm gonna head back into the forest. And so that's probably the most common thing that's gonna happen, and it's awesome. It's awesome when they are scared of you. That's what you want. That's a safe bear, really, if they run away. The second option, which is much less common, is bluff charging. And this can be pretty scary. I've had it happen to myself, and it was a big grizzly. And what you need to do is actually hold your ground in that moment, and that can be hard. When a bear's coming at you, it can be scary for sure. But if you hold your ground, like a bluff charge, they are trying to scare you. That's their goal. And so they will run up to you and then turn around and go back. And then they might do it again. And then the other one, which I've actually never had, is if they're quietly following you, which is like predator mode. And this is really rare. I've had a lot of experience with bears, and I've never had anything like that before. And with that, what you want to do is you want to yell, you want to back away, want to keep an eye on where they are, make yourself look big, and you also want to do the same thing too. You want to make sure that they're not comfortable with you and that you look big and that you're not intimidated. So, which is hard, and you can definitely be intimidated, especially if like a bear's like that, but it is much less common, very rare.
Okay, so in these scenarios, you're not going to use your bear spray all the time, but we're going to chat a little bit more about bear spray. So that is definitely something that you always are going to want when you're going into the wilderness in the backcountry. You want it easily accessible. You want it somewhere that you can grab. So often people will have it on their pack or on their waist. You can even get leg straps to use it, but you want to have it somewhere where you can grab it in case you come across a bear right away. And the thing to think about also is if it's on your pack and you take your pack off to go pee in the woods, you might want your bear spray. You might run into a bear when you're peeing in the woods. Not to freak anybody out, but I think it's just a good thing to think about. Where would you like your bear spray to be on your pack, right? If it's in the bottom of your pack, it's not super helpful, because when we're using bear spray, you need to be pretty close to the bear for it to be effective. This is what they drilled into us at the course on the weekend again and again, is it's not an air freshener. If they walk through it, it doesn't work. So you need to be within 18 feet of it. And so that's a good thing to kind of pace 18 feet and see how far away that is. And so that you can kind of have a mental image of that. But any farther, it won't get into the bear's face. And so you do really want to be no farther than 18 feet away when you're going to use bear spray, or else it's not really effective at all. And so really what he taught us to do was to do 2 1-second sprays directly in the face of the bear. And then you're not going to necessarily walk backwards. You want to walk sideways. And so you kind of do a gallop trot sideways. You keep your eyes on the bear, but you also keep your eyes down the trail. And so you spray and you go sideways backwards. And so you want to be mindful, and it's super important to have good footwork. And so you need to keep your eyes on both ways. And then when the bear is out of sight, then you can turn around and keep going. And so that's what he taught us to do. There's so many circumstances and so many times that I have run into bears and I have never used a bear spray. And so I just want to say it depends on where you're hiking. It really depends on where you're hiking. I am often hiking in an area where bears are scared of people. They haven't seen people at all before, or very much. And so because of that, they run away really quickly. It's the first case scenario, what Stephanie said. They're retreating right away. And so we often don't need the bear spray. But I would encourage you to gain the confidence to take your bear spray, just figure out how you use it, how you would remove the cap, which way you would hold it. And we practiced in the course and multiple times where we held it, pretended that there was a bear, and then we ran backwards or ran sideways like he taught us to do. So Stephanie does have a fake bear spray to show us, and you want to show us how to hold it and remove the lid, Stephanie?
Yeah, so this is not a real one. Sometimes they have orange clip. Sometimes they have a glow in the dark clip, which is like also super nice, especially if you're like at nighttime. Basically, there's a nozzle and the little loop the loop goes towards you, the nozzle goes away. And one important thing actually to remember as well is if you live somewhere where it's really windy, like I do, you also want to keep that in mind when you're using bear spray, because if the wind is blowing directly towards you, if you spray that bear spray, it is actually just going to blow into your face, which will make things worse. So be mindful of which direction the wind is going in order for it to be effective. So the 18 feet would be on a calm day. So without wind as a factor. Do keep that in mind. But yeah, the clip can be like a little bit of a pain to come off, but it has like a little pull-up tab. You just pull that back and you point it straight out ahead of you. You can your fingers through the loop, and then you just spray, pull down on the little lever. That's basically how you use it. There are typically instructions on the can as well. So look it over. That's an important thing. And then to just put the cap back on, you just push it in just like that. This is something you can do with your kids as well. How far is 18 feet? What does that look like? So if your kids also are comfortable with just knowing what to expect, maybe even doing a bear aware type course with your kids would be super awesome. Things like that where you can gain confidence, and especially being familiar how to use bear spray, because there's really no point bringing it if you don't know how to use it. And so that's an important thing too. And it's not, it's not like bug spray. It's not a repellent. It's more like a pepper spray, that kind of a thing. So yeah, just keep that in mind.
Yeah, the point is to sting the bear's eyes and face and nose. And that's exactly what it's doing. So bear spray technically does expire after 5 years. And I love how the man on the course said, this is a selling tactic. He's like, it is a selling tactic. However, it does slowly degrade. So just keep that in mind. And then they did say if you have expired bear spray, you can practice spraying it, but go somewhere that's not in your yard or in your area, because they said the pepper actually later on does attract bears, which is fascinating to me. And so you want to go somewhere in the wilderness where no one's going to be later, and practice spraying the bear spray when it's not windy. And it's like an oily substance if you've ever gotten it on you. And so the best thing if you do get bear spray on you is to wait till it dries. If you don't have a lot of water, like if you just have your water bottle, don't even try and get it off of you. Just try and get it to dry, sit in the wind or sit in the sunshine. And once it dries, it shouldn't burn you as much or like that burning sensation. And then go home and use a lot of water and soap to get it off of you if that ever happens.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, how important it is to be mindful of where you carry your bear spray, because if you just have it loose in your pocket or in your pack or something like that, something bumps sideways, like you could just knock the clip off and then it could spray inside of your pack or in your pocket or things like that, and you really don't want that to happen. A lot of places where they sell bear spray, they also have like little holster. Those would be great because then you wouldn't have that extra risk of spraying the bear spray all over your stuff. So keep that in mind too.
Yes, I've heard those awful stories. Okay. Why don't we walk through a couple examples, Stephanie, so that we can kind of put these little pieces together that we've talked about. So I'd say the first case scenario, why don't you talk about seeing the bear on the hiking trail?
Yeah, so you just see a bear on the trail. What I typically do would be like, hey bear, what are you doing here? And I basically just talk to the bear really loud, be like, hey, we're here, you're here, how about you leave now? That kind of thing. And typically I'll start like backing or slowly walking away. You don't walk towards the bear really, unless you're trying to scare it out of your campsite, which can be a thing too. For example, like let's say you wake up in the morning and there's a bear in your campsite. Obviously you can't really back away because you're getting out of your tent. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna be like, hey bear, what are you doing in our campsite? This is our campsite. Why don't you go back into the forest? And stay really calm. The best thing to do is to be calm and be like, everything's gonna be fine. Don't let yourself panic or get stressed. So yeah, you want to encourage the bear to leave, talk loudly, and the vast majority of times the bear will scamper off into the woods. Typically they're just curious. I kind of in some ways view bears as kind of like dogs a little bit. They're just like, what's this? Interesting. I smelled that they must have made bannock last night. Smells good. Like, they're just kind of curious about what's going on. If you see a bear, it's not just there because it wants to get you. It's curious. It's interested in what's going on. And so if you make noise and encourage it to leave, it will go. And that's the most common thing that you'll deal with.
If you are into making healthy homemade snacks, I wanted to let you know that I have a huge library of homemade muffin recipes They're all healthy. My goal is to make them nutrient dense with things like fruit, high in protein, whole wheat flour, low in sugar, no dairy. I mean, whatever you're looking for, it's there. The goal is that it won't break the bank and that you can actually find these ingredients, most being in your house. So go to besidethemountain.com/muffins and you'll find all of my recipes. My favorites are the gingerbread pumpkin muffin, the whole wheat apple muffins with banana, and the blender orange muffins. You're gonna love them. As a somewhat crunchy mom, I care about the fibers my kids wear. I haven't switched everything over yet, but the one material I am always looking for is merino wool. It comes from sheep and it's processed into fabric that's naturally quick drying, breathable, and temperature regulating. For base layers, especially ones my kids wear repeat on trips, merino wool is my first choice. So I wanted to tell you all about Wee Woolies. They're a Canadian company that specializes in kids' base layers, making ultra soft wool from New Zealand sheep. Their clothing comes in many fun colors, keeping kids warm when it's cold and cool when it's hot. For Let's Go Outside listeners, use the code Let's Go Outside to get 10% off your next Wee Woolies order. The link is in the show notes.
So being in a national park or somewhere like that where bears are pretty used to people, that's a very different scenario than in the general backcountry where bears aren't familiar with you and they will typically run away. So yeah, there was one time where I was hiking, actually it was in the redwood forest, and there was a group of tourists ahead of me and there was a switchback trail and they were taking pictures of this bear. And they were actually between the mama bear and the cubs, and they didn't realize like how dangerous that situation actually is versus having a bear in your campsite that's scared of people. That's not really a dangerous situation. Whereas if you're in a park where bears are really comfortable around people, and then especially if you get between a mom and her cubs, that is like a pretty high risk scenario. You want to be really vigilant. If you see other people, maybe they're absorbed with trying to get really good pictures and don't realize the risk that they're in, talk to those people, encourage them from a distance from wherever you are, being like, hey, they're like, it's not safe for you to be here between the bears. Let's back away. Let's try and encourage the people in the area to respond appropriately, because they're putting themselves and other hikers in the area at risk too. That's an important thing to be mindful of like what scenarios are more risky. So bears that are comfortable with people, a mama bear with cubs, also a bear that has food that it's trying to protect. That's another scenario where you don't want to bother it. You're not going to go up to it and be like, hey, leave, like that's where you just quietly back away. Be mindful of that if you're in parks where bears are more comfortable with people. Yeah, encouraging other tourists who might not be aware about bear safety as well, how to respond.
Yeah. Yep, that's so true. And it's not always fun to encounter other people and have to tell them what's going on, but I think these days the bears can be so prevalent in the national parks. And yeah, people are not always educated, and more people are coming into the outdoors, and we love that. But we need to have our thinking caps on and our common sense and take these courses and think about these processes and different things. So another scenario that I thought of was, we're on a backpacking trip. We have it all planned out. Maybe we're going for 5 days. It's day one and we see fresh bear poop as we're hiking in. It's maybe me and a group of a couple moms. What are we going to do? Are we going to keep going? Are we going to turn around? And when I was thinking about this scenario, I think my thought process was, well, how popular of a campsite is this? Is this a place where bears have been a lot and maybe they have been introduced to food or smells that have been left behind and they're returning? Or is this a pretty remote wilderness-based campsite where the bears are going to be scared? And you really don't know, but you might be able to have clues on how popular the campground is. And the other thought process is there going to be other people at this campground? Because there's so much safety in numbers also, or bigger groups. And so, to be honest, if this was the situation, if I was alone with my kids, I would consider turning around. I think it would just also like, how calm am I? How am I feeling? How prepared am I? However, if I was with a group of people, I would most probably keep going, because I know the stats that bear attacks do not happen in groups. I think there's no recorded bear attack in a group larger than 4 people. And I And that's kind of my thought process. But if there is an aggressive bear in area warning, or that area is known for that, I would be out of there. That's not where I want to be with my kids at all. And so that's kind of my thought process. Is there anything that you would add to that, Stephanie?
Yeah, and I think like a big part of it too is how you're feeling. Are you dealing with postpartum anxiety? Or is it a time of the month where you're just feeling extra stressed? Don't push yourself to like do something just because you're like, I need to be brave. I just need to do it because we need to be outside. Like if it's gonna just cause you a bunch of extra stress, just turn around, go back. You can do other fun things outside. Know where you're at and know what you can handle, and yeah, just respond in that way. So yeah, if you are in an area where bears are typically scared of people and you're heading in, like you could keep going. If you feel confident to keep going, I think the thought process that would change would just be like, okay, I'm way more hyper aware now. Like I know there is a bear around, so you'd keep a good eye out. I think you'd just be more hyper vigilant. I think those are the main things to think about.
Okay, the next scenario is we are hiking and we come along a ridge and we pop the ridge and we see down in the Alpine Valley there is a mama with her 3 cubs. How would you respond to that, Stephanie?
So that's another one where you kind of do a little bit of a risk assessment where you're like, okay, it's a higher risk scenario when you're dealing with a mama with her cubs because she wants to make sure she keeps them safe, and you're a scary foreigner and just like, no, I don't want you around. So for a scenario like that, especially if you're in a small group or by yourself, like definitely don't want to keep going. That would be another example of where it would be the wisest thing to do would just be to turn around, head out. Yeah. So you don't want to cause extra stress. I think like a big factor as well is how far away is she? If she's way up on another ridge and your trail isn't really going that direction and you're going to kind of move away, then you can keep going. I would keep going then. But if your trail is going directly to where she is with her cubs, that's not a safe scenario. It's not a wise move to keep going. You can just enjoy them from a distance and head out. That's how I would
and if
respond.
if it's a multi-day trip, I would probably wait that out, or try and hike around the ridge and go an alternate route if I could, probably.
Totally. And I think like finding an alternate route is like, if you want to keep going, is a typical thing to do if you want to continue on. I've had to do that before as well, where you're like, okay, I was planning to go up this valley, but I'm going to change my course and I'm going to go up that other ridge over on the side just so I can like skirt around, and just, you want to give them a lot of space. Like I think not letting fear kind of be the thing that's ruling you, but give those animals the respect that they need and the space that they need so that they can enjoy where they are and you can enjoy that where you are, and you can just coexist happily outside.
Yeah. Okay, one of the last scenarios is there's a bear in town. It's wandering around, you see it maybe in your neighbor's yard.
Yeah, so with that, I think the big thing about in town is just being really mindful of garbage. Like that's a really big issue. So don't put your garbage out too long. If your garbage collection day is on whatever day, be mindful of that. If you see a bear in your neighbor's yard, I'd call your neighbor to give them a heads up. But then also you want to be letting know whoever the conservation or fish and wildlife people are for your area. You want to give them a heads up. Be like, hey, there's a bear here, because they're trained to deal with it and they don't want bears to get comfortable being in town, because that's not a good scenario. We want them comfortable in the forest, not in towns where people are. So yeah, calling whoever fish and wildlife or conservation officer would be for your area. And then just especially being really mindful of garbage. You can also get bear-proof bins. So that's like another thing to maybe look into if you live in a place where bears are an issue. So yeah, those are some options just to kind of help navigate that scenario.
Yeah. The other things to think about would be fruit trees to try and pick the fruit as soon as possible before it just sits on the ground, and barbecues to clean them right away, or anything that smells out there. Honestly, even gardens can be attractant. So just like being mindful and seeing what the bear is attracted to, because they often want to come back if they know something is delicious there. That's something we need to be proactive about as the bears are coming down from the mountains and into our...
And this includes like your recycling and stuff too, just because like empty bottles and cans and things like that, they have like a lot of smells on them. So that's like another thing, even though it might be a separate bin than your garbage, your recycling also should be something that you are mindful of, like how you store that.
Yeah, and something that we could also mention right here is the seasons of bears. And sometimes bears will come in and out of hibernation in the winter, but mostly they're hibernating. And then in the spring, they're coming out, they're hungry. And so that is definitely when you don't want to mess with a bear. That is more likely when they are looking for something to eat, and often when they're having babies also. And so I think spring bears are more aggressive than probably summer bears or fall bears.
Yeah, for sure. And like also keeping in mind as well, if it's a really dry year, like late summer or fall, like a lot of times bears come down from like really far back out in the wilderness to places where there's water. So like let's say you're camping along a lake or a river and it's been like really dry all summer, you're way more likely to encounter bears just being like really thirsty and they're just coming to find some water. So that's another thing. Also berry picking, like if berries are ripe, like that kind of thing, be aware that bears also enjoy those berries. So, you know, you can both enjoy them, but just be aware of, if they might be around.
I thought you were saying save some for the bears.
Save some
I was
for
like,
the bears.
I'm not saving some for the bears, Stephanie. I'm taking all the berries. I love hearing the loon. That's so nice. Okay, I asked on Instagram if anyone had questions about bears or thoughts. And so I had 2 points to mention here. Someone said, I keep thinking bears will be attracted to the girls' dirty diapers in the middle of the night. So when they're camping. Do you want to speak to that, Stephanie?
Yeah, so I think it depends how you're camping. So like if you're in an RV, that kind of thing, like you really don't, like there's not really much you need to worry about. If you're in a tent as well, bears are much more interested in food than they are in a stinky diaper. So if it's in the middle of the night and you don't want to go out of your tent and pull down your whole bear line and put it back up, or go to the locker, don't stress about that. Like they're not going to really be interested in that. If you have a big bag of diapers in your tent that are all dirty that you've had for a long time, like that's different. But if you have a couple diapers that are just fresh from that night, like honestly don't worry about it. They are much more interested in food than they are in diapers. So yeah, that's how I would do it.
And I think if we're proactive in cleaning up our campsite, that's like more important. And this kind of leads into the next question too. But I think about the fact that when we are backcountry camping or camping in general, we do need to lock away those smelly things. However, we are smelly ourselves. Like we are gonna have odors. And so I think about that sometimes too. It's like you minimize it as much as you can. And yes, don't put on like strawberry deodorant before you go to bed or something. But there is gonna be some smells to us. And so there is many reported reported cases of people having bears sniff their tent, and that's like Stephanie said, they're curious. And so if you take away anything that it could want, it's usually just curious. And usually, like I actually have never had a bear sniff my tent. I know Daniel has, I know Stephanie has, but they sniff and they leave in the cases that I have heard. And so this leads me into the next point I had. Someone said food safety. When there's no bear lockers, what do we do? Do we really have to hang it in a tree? And so this is when you're backcountry camping, and they're in many places now, and in a lot of popular places, they're putting bear lockers, and they purposely have put them away from the campsite. You'll notice like, oh, I have to walk back to the bear locker and like put my food in here. And that's the point. You want the food and the smelly stuff locked up far away. You want to make sure those are locked well. But in many cases, there's not. If you're going deep into the wilderness or on a really remote trip, there's no lockers like that. And so you do need to take all your food, put it together, get a rope, get a carabiner, string it all together, and hang it in a tree. You need to have it high so that the bear cannot reach it. And this is very important, I would say, because that is the key point in we need to be proactive about these bear encounters. And that is really one of the main things that we can do is cleaning up our campsite. And so if we're car camping, I would say put your barbecue in the under your truck or in the bottom of your cab under stuff, or just make sure that your campsite is completely tidy. You're not leaving any food out or anything. Do a scan before you go to bed, before you go in your trailer, and minimize all the smells that you can.
Totally. And one more thing as well, just for like minimizing wildlife encounters when you're in the backcountry, is be mindful of where you're setting up your tent as well. Like if there's not a designated spot, like don't set it up across what we call like a game trail. So sometimes there's like a really common path that animals might take to go to a creek or whatever that might be. You don't want to set your tent up in that area because that would be something that the animals would like to use to get to wherever they're going. I made that mistake once. I had my hammock set up across a game trail, and that was where I had the bear sniff me, which was definitely a little bit nerve-wracking for sure, but I didn't have anything with me, like no smelly stuff. So I knew he was just curious. Like he was just like, why is there this hanging burrito across my little path to the lake? And so, yeah, just be mindful of that, like where you place your tent as well, because that can help minimize your interactions with wildlife too.
I want to know, did it go away and did you sleep?
Yeah, so it did go away. It was one of those moments where I was praying really hard and my heartbeat is so loud. Everything, is it gonna leave? Is it gonna leave? And yes, he did leave. He was just like, what is this? He was just like trying to figure out how to get around me. So he did actually kind of like bump into the hammock. You know, the adrenaline was definitely there. I did eventually fall back asleep after the adrenaline died down, but so it was a good lesson of, hey, don't set up your sleeping accommodations across a game trail because then that's where you could have those encounters.
And I think in that scenario, it's really important to note you didn't call out. You didn't rile up the bear. You stayed calm, you stayed quiet. And that's kind of the response that you do want to do because you knew it was just a curious bear. It wasn't a predatory bear or coming after you. It didn't know you were there until it bumped right into you. And so you can just stay completely silent and let it carry on its jolly way.
Totally. And in that scenario, it would have been bad choice to make noise just because it would be so close. So it would probably scare it in a way that wouldn't be helpful. So I was just like, wait it out. You know, it's just curious. It's just trying to get a drink of water from the lake. You just have to be quiet, and your heartbeat, even though it sounds super loud, it's just normal.
Yeah. Okay, so we covered a lot there. Do you want to do an overview of the key points that we covered, Stephanie, or things to keep in mind?
Yeah, so big one is make noise on the trail. So typically if you're with kids, like that's kind of a pretty natural thing. You're pointing out all the random fun things. Look at this cool flower, or look, there's a squirrel in the tree, or whatever it might be. Like typically pretty chatty anyways, but make sure that you're doing that. Singing songs while you hike is really fun. Hiking in groups is a really big one as well. Like Danika mentioned, like it's very, very uncommon for a bear to attack like a bigger group. So like I honestly haven't even heard of a bear attack.
Even a medium group.
Even a medium group. Like like I think all bear attacks have been groups of 3 or less. So typically 1. So if you have, a group of people, there's safety in numbers, so keep that in mind. Other big one we touched on was don't leave your food or garbage out. Good camping etiquette. And that includes on the trail too. So like along the trail, you stop for a lunch break or whatnot, you just pack that all up. Don't leave stuff laying around. And make sure that you're storing things appropriately depending on where you're camping. So like if you're in a campground, in storage lockers or in your vehicle or in your RV, that kind of thing. If you're tenting or that type of thing in the backcountry, then using a bear hang, or if there are lockers out there, using that as well. But just make sure that the food is kept away from your camping space. And then last of all is just always carrying bear spray and know how to use it. So carry it safely, be educated on how to use it, and you'll be set.
Yeah. One more thing that I would just add to what we were talking about previously, but we didn't really say it out loud, was when you are choosing where to put your tent in the backcountry, campgrounds are already designated, and so this situation isn't necessarily going to apply. However, but when you get to choose where you put your tent, don't put it close to your cooking area or to your campfire or to your bear hang. And so what we have talked about, or what Stephanie and I have learned through our experience in leading groups, is you want to make a triangle. You want to make a triangle with your food and your bear hang, and your campfire is going to be in one area. You are going to camp and set up your tent in another area, and then your bathroom area is going to be on the third point of the triangle, and that's how you want to separate it. And do you know how far away, Stephanie, we would say?
I mean, it kind of depends on where really it depends on your level of comfort. So like if you are in your tent, how comfortable would you be with a bear? So like that's how far you would want to set up your cooking area away. So there's not like an actual formula, but ideally how comfortable you feel. So you want to kind of keep a healthy distance. But I mean, not across the valley, but yeah, I'd say at least 20 feet.
Yeah, and I think in popular bear areas like the Three Sisters in Fernie now, if you go backcountry camping there, they have a designated picnic table area and then they have little pods because the bears are quite prevalent in that area. And so they are trying to minimize it. And so when you're with other groups, maybe that you don't even know, you can also do the same practice where you're all camping kind of in the same area, but you're all cooking kind of in the same area too. And so that's something to keep in mind when you're in other areas with other people also. So, yeah, I think that wraps up our bear portion of our chat. We briefly wanted to chat more about other animals and we'll just briefly go over them to give a little bit of insight. Yeah, Stephanie, if you would like to start with cougars or mountain lions.
Yeah. So cougars, what do you do when you encounter them? So they're they're a big cat. So they have 5 toes. The nails don't really show. So if you even think of this like how a house cat walks, their nails retract back. So it's big cat print, really. That's what it looks like. You can use bear spray on a cougar, even if it's not called cougar spray. It all does the same thing. If you see one, don't run, make yourself big, pick up kids. You know, if you have little kids with you, just like pick them up, slowly back away, sidestep, that kind of thing. Yeah, I would say I'm definitely more nervous about cougars than bears because cougars, you typically don't see them. They are shy, they're very sneaky, very quiet. And so if you do see one, it's a more high risk scenario for sure. They can be predatory and that kind of thing. So yeah, just keep that in mind. You can use bear spray just like for a bear. You can use that with a cougar, make yourself big, all those kind of things. So yeah,
just get out of there. And it's pretty rare. I've never seen a cougar in the 15 years I have been exploring in very remote areas. And the few encounters that you've had, Stephanie, they have been scared.
Yeah. Totally, which is very encouraging. Like you want them to be scared and moving away from you. If they're not scared and moving towards you, that is like a high risk scenario, but I would say it's not very common.
And moose is very similar. Like moose, you don't want to be close to them. They're big, they'll charge you. When they have cows in the spring, they're very protective. And so in the spring, you need to be on high alert of that. They're often really quiet. I have come up over a little hiking trail and there's one right there, right in front of me. But it's the same. They're scared of you. Like they don't want to see you either. So they often back away. And this happened to me in multiple scenarios when I was also skiing with Koa on my back. And I had Koa on my back while I was doing this like cross country skiing. And we were both in the forest and we scared each other. And the moose ran off to the side. And so I just continued back to my car. That was the way I was going anyways. And so you want to slowly back away and give them space. And something to remember, their antlers, they can't get by rocks or into the forest with it if it's a male, right? And so that would be a safe place to go, is into the forest or behind a rock.
Yeah, where trees are close together. One other thing with moose as well is in the fall, in the rut, the breeding season for moose, you definitely want to give them space during that time. Because they're just trying to show off their strength and they're really hormonal and aggressive. So that's the time especially where you want to give them some space too.
That's a good point. Okay, do you want to jump into rattlesnakes?
Yeah, rattlesnakes. So I grew up on the prairies along the coulees. So rattlesnakes are actually something that I dealt with from a little kid. And so my parents did a great job of just explaining like what to do, how to handle that. And I think as moms, that's a really important thing, honestly, for all of these different types of animals that we're dealing with, is just make sure our kids know what to do so that they can feel confident being outside too. For rattlesnakes, stick to trails, avoid tall grass, don't like reach into little holes and logs. You want to look first, and also know like your region too. So like rattlesnakes aren't everywhere, but wherever you're traveling, be mindful of that. They also, like, if there is a venomous snake, reptile, animal in the area where you are, hospitals in that area, the vast majority of them will all have an anti-venom for that. So that is like a comfort. As well, just knowing like they will have that in stock there. So if you are bitten by a rattlesnake, you want to stay calm. Don't try suck out the venom. No, don't do that.
Indiana Jones style.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah, it just makes things worse. Seek help fast. So with that, like you want to basically get the anti-venom in as fast as you can. So staying calm. Big thing is you don't want to like get your blood pumping everywhere because that will push the venom into more parts of your body. So you don't want to be like, oh my goodness, I just got bit by a rattlesnake. You panic, that makes blood flow. You start running, that also causes extra blood flow. So I know as a kid what we were told if we ever got bit by a rattlesnake, that one of our siblings would run back and tell our parents so that we'd all move away from the snake. But the person who was bit wasn't supposed to run back because that just makes travel through your system more, which you don't really want to do. Yeah, and then just go into the hospital from that. They're reptiles. So another place where you can often find them is like, well, for us, we lived on a farm, so they would be along the edge of the cold irrigation pipes because they like the hot weather. They wanted to be somewhere that they could cool themselves down. So we knew where the high risk kind of areas were for encountering them. So yeah, those are just things to keep in mind. Yeah, but you can avoid them. The rattlesnakes do have a rattly sound and they coil up, and their vision is kind of infrared. So they see body heat. That's how they see. So yeah, knowledge is power, and just knowing how to handle that. Younger rattlesnakes are actually more dangerous than bigger ones because they don't know how to control their venom flow. So if you do get bit by a rattlesnake, the big ones will only release a little bit of venom because they're like, I gotta conserve my venom. The little ones don't have as much self-control, I guess, and so they can actually release a lot more venom. So just be mindful of that as well.
That's good. I mean, I learned about that infrared stuff. I did not know that. And I also really love that your parents talked to you about that and were proactive and just were like, this is a thing and we can deal with it and you can still go play in the coulees. And I think that's really good for me to think about too, even now. Stephanie and I actually are pretty much neighbors, and we live in a community that's outside of town, and there's lots of wilderness out here. But thinking about my kids going out here and just telling them, you know what, someone did spot a bear the other day, and just being like, you stay inside of mama and mama's going to check before you go outside into the yard and things like that. I think it's good. And if we do see a bear, we stay calm and we back away. And I think that's a good point, Stephanie, to cover it with our kids. And my son is 5 and 2, and I'm slowly sharing more about that with him as we get into this season. Okay, let's jump into ticks. So I think most of us know ticks. Most of us hate them. It is just reality these days that they are becoming quite prevalent in hiking areas, and just they exist, right? And so if you have never seen one, Google it, look it up. It is like a flat, hard back, and it has 8 legs. They live in grass. They really like sunny spots. And so we have noticed this where we'll be hanging out in a rock climbing destination all day, and then we move to a grassy spot, and then we'll see them on our clothes as we move to the grassy slopes. And so that's something to keep in mind. They also like to live on animals. So if deer is passing through, or if there's goats passing through where we live, they're often going to be found in those areas. In my travels, we've seen them in Kenya, we've seen them in Cuba, and we've seen them in Europe. They're a lot smaller, but they do live all over the world. In those places, it's hard to find reports or cases of Lyme's disease, but like with anything, I think we need to be proactive and just always check. And that's the approach to ticks that we need to take is, we're outside and we come in and we check our hair. They tend to go to any spot that's warm, any spot that's hairy. And so do your tick checks. Get even under tight areas of your clothing, I would check things that I've seen people do to prevent this. You can get repellents or sprays, or people put their pants, they tuck them into their socks. You can see that because then the ticks won't crawl up their legs, but they'll crawl onto their pants and you could see them. But I really think the most important thing to do is to have that part of your practice is to do a tick check. I mean, with my kids, they're so small, they get into the bath and I just do a quick check, and it's easier because they are blonde. I know that's not going to be the case for everyone, but usually I can spot them pretty quickly on my kids before, and I've found quite a few on them and they have not embedded. I would also say a lot of people have said I've never seen them in North America. I've never encountered them. And I was talking to my friend the other day and I said, you know what? You are often a summer hiker though, and they are very much a spring bug. They We often see them in May and June. They really are prevalent during that time. And then often when we get those heat spells, they're gone.
Yeah, the seasons
Yeah.
are a big factor, and it depends kind of where you're at, what that season exactly would look like. But for where we are, it's typically spring. And then even though tucking your pants and your socks might look a little tacky, ticks do just like to climb upwards. So they typically don't go down. If you have your socks over your pants, minimizes like the amount of areas that you need to check, basically. So that's another factor. And you can use like different types of repellents. There's natural ones, there's deep-based ones, there's all kinds of different options. But yeah, doing a tick check is a big important part, even if you're in an area where you're like, I don't know if there's any ticks here. Still good to do. And removing a tick. So if you have one embedded, you'll need to get it out. You don't want to leave it in there. So what you're going to want to do is they do have like these special tick tweezers that you can get off Amazon or wherever. It's nice to actually just have those in your first aid kit for when you're hiking. Have a pair of those in there. But what you're going to want to do is pull them straight back. You don't want to twist. You don't want to do anything like that, because you want to get all of the tick out right away. And you also don't want to burn it while it's on you. Try and make it go out, or put oil or other stuff on it while it's on you, because the big thing that would happen if you make the tick angry is they will release their stomach content into you. So you don't want to make them mad. You just want to pull them straight back, straight out. You don't want to twist, any of those other things, because that will cause them to release the stuff that's in them, which they do carry a lot of diseases, not just Lyme's disease. There are other ones that they carry as well. So you just want to get them out nicely and just monitor that. You can submit ticks for testing as well. So it kind of depends on your area where you're at. But yeah, you can do that. Just Google for where your area is and you can have it tested. So yeah, that's another thing you can do. And also be mindful as well, like not everybody will get a bullseye rash or all the classic kind of symptoms that a person might get with Lyme's disease. Those symptoms don't always show up. So just be vigilant with just monitoring yourself and submitting the ticks for testing and just how you take the ticks out.
Yeah, and for us in this area, to submit a tick, you need to just take a high quality photo and then you just send it in. It's super simple. And so the other day, that's what Daniel and I did. We were rock climbing and he got about 6 ticks. It was kind of insane. But we found most of them. One of them had embedded, pulled it straight out. We took a photo, high quality photo. We submitted the photo and then we killed the tick instantly, flushed it down the toilet, put it in the garbage, or burn it at that point. And then they emailed back within 24 hours and said, from what we think, this is probably what kind of tick it is, and those ones aren't known to carry diseases, but this is good to know. That's the process that happens in southern Alberta.
Yeah, totally. Another thing, personally, what I do, if a tick is actually embedded, I save that one. I mean, I kill it, but save it in a little canister or something, label it of when it bit you, that kind of thing. Just because I know people who do have Lyme's disease and it's awful, and they can actually test the individual tick, like the actual tick that bit you, if you do end up like showing any symptoms or things like that. So personally, I like to just save like ones that actually do embed, just so that you have that as an option for testing the physical tick rather than just through a picture. So yeah, that's another thing.
Okay. So to wrap us up, we'll go through 6 points, okay? Number 1, make lots of noise when we're in the backcountry, when we're going out, especially when we're in a smaller group, we're by ourselves with our kids, make lots of noise. Number 2, stay calm. Even though our heart is racing, trick ourselves into staying calm, because when we get worked at, we make poor decisions, but also the animals sense that and they respond negatively. So it always helps to stay calm. Number 3, go with friends, safety numbers, especially if you're feeling nervous, especially if you're unsure. It's always just so good to go outside with other people, even if it's just one other person. Do you want to do the last 3, Stephanie?
Yeah. Carry bear spray, practice how to use it, that kind of thing. Like show your kids how to use it as well. Be mindful of how you carry it and where you carry it. Take a bear safety
Depending on
course.
how old your kids are.
Yes, very true. You don't want to give
My
bear
kids aren't
spray
ready
to
for
your
that.
toddler. You know your kids, you know what they can handle. So, but yeah, take a bear safety course. And also I would recommend, like, if your kids are old enough to like understand like a course, do it with them as well, just so that they can also have that knowledge. And yeah, be confident going outside. And yeah, just don't let fear win. You're smart, you're prepared, you're capable, enjoy being outside, and knowledge is power. And yeah, just outside.
The more you go, the more confidence you will gain and the more of a feel for it too. And
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely. Like growing up on
yeah.
the prairies, I never dealt with bears. I dealt with rattlesnakes. And then later moving to the mountains, then I dealt with bears. And like over time, that was where I gained confidence in how to deal with them and understanding like their behavior, things like that. So yeah, just continue going out and go with other people if you're nervous, or take a course, all those things. Just gain that confidence over time, and that's super helpful. Even if you're traveling to other countries as well, and you might have other animals that you're going to encounter that you don't like know how to deal with, like talk to locals as well. Like they know what animals are dangerous and how to respond to them. So that's like another good thing. Talk to locals in the area because they hopefully will know all the information too.
Yes, and I hope this was helpful. If you guys have questions, you can message me or you can connect in the Facebook group about your questions and we can chat further about them. The other thing is that I was thinking about the other day, if a lot of people are interested in the local area, we could ask to do another bear course
Mhm.
in this area because I think they just need about 5 people or something, and then they can easily run it again. And it's very informative, very educational. So, yeah. So, with that, like Stephanie said, we don't want to scare you. We want you to know what it's like, think about the situations. And a lot of it is staying calm and think about the situation. And you've got this. And the more you go out, the more you will have a feel for it. So keep exploring. And thanks for listening along today. I just wanted to say I'm so grateful that you're here listening along, and I want to hear what you thought of this episode. Let me know if there was something that we maybe missed or something that you want to know more about. Come on over to the Facebook group. It's a community of like-minded moms that like to go outside, and come contribute what you thought about this episode. Also, as this is still only a couple months into me sharing this podcast, I want to ask you to share this episode or an episode that you've heard with a friend, just to reach more people, because I know that there's a lot of moms out there exploring, and I want to bring us together because I think it's so fun to do this together across the world, across North America. So I'm thankful that you're here. That's what I wanted to say today. Have a beautiful day.